Okay, let's talk about NAL 2022 season stage number one, play day number one. So probably this video will end up being long. We'll see what actually happens. I'm going to talk about all of the matches, but I also want to talk about the broadcast and the league and whatever as a whole. So we'll start out by talking about some of that stuff. So for this first day, and I believe this first week, so that would be this play day I'm talking about here, and then the following play day number two, no Intero and no Jesse. I guess they're still sorting out their visa stuff. They should be back next week, and so in their stead, for Jesse is Cookies, and in for Intero is Jace Wills. So Cookies, he came off as a little bit awkward on the desk, maybe a little bit nervous. He's been doing Challenger League for a while, so it's not like he hasn't been on a decently big stage, but surely the biggest stage he's been on, and it's actually in person as opposed to online, sitting in your own office, bedroom, whatever it is. But he didn't come off as terrible. I still thought he did a good job, and generally Cookies is my favorite guy from the Challenger League broadcast. He's a lot of fun, and he's just a really, really fun personality, I guess, overall, and he didn't come off as too awkward. I think part of it is just the sporadic way that he speaks, so he comes off a little bit more awkward than he actually is probably feeling, but good job by him. And then Jay's Wills, maybe... I didn't even notice so much, but he said in a tweet that he felt like he was a little bit shaky at first, and then he got in the swing of things. He's just a super smooth talker. He did a really good job, and really good casting by him, and he just fit in with Pengu pretty seamlessly. So also Doa, I wasn't sure if it was DOA or Doa before, but he said it's Doa, so that's what we're rocking with. That's the correct thing to say. Yeah, he is also joining the broadcast. First time we've seen him. We saw a little bit of a skit at the beginning with him and Jacob and Cookies, and sometimes I find the skits a little bit hit or miss, and I did think this one was kind of cute. As soon as the stream started and I saw that green screen, I was about to lose my mind. It's like, no way they didn't solve this. Like, I knew that they were supposed to be in person, so I was like, there's no way they're actually using a green screen and they're in a studio. And then it was a bit of a bait, because then they cut and they revealed their new studio, which looks good. So yeah, just they've really stepped up everything from last year. No longer online, it's all in person. They're not in Vegas with the players, they're in their own studio in, I don't know if it's in California or if in Texas or where it is, because I think they did a temporary broadcast in Texas, or maybe that's actually where they ended up having studio. Anyways, it's not in Vegas, or if it is in Vegas, it's just not at the same place that the players are. Not 100% sure. But yeah, the players are all playing in one area, and then all the talent is in another area, and then they phone in for the interviews and whatnot. And I will probably be uploading, if I haven't already uploaded by the time I upload this one, all of the interviews. Maybe I'll compile them at the end, but considering it's like 20 minutes for all of the interviews each day, if they actually do all 5 interviews, I'll probably just upload them all separately. So what else do I want to talk about here? So before I get into the matches, I don't know if there's too much else. Oh, the length of the broadcast I kind of wanted to mention. So it ended up being, I think, slightly over 8 hours, which is actually pretty well what was prescribed. So I think about an hour and a half is carved out for each match, which is probably, it's like way longer than most matches are going to go. Some matches could go to that if there's overtime maybe, and there's tack pauses, maybe some tech pauses, but generally a best of one match isn't going to go anywhere near that. And so there was a lot of time between matches, but the time between rounds is reduced greatly. The map pool changes, and the attacker repick, so the change of that phase, no longer the reveal phase and the 6-pick and all that. All of this stuff has come together to be a great viewing experience, and also the whole studio stuff. The chemistry is a lot better with people being in person. All this stuff, great broadcast, I think, overall. I think they could maybe work on the time between games a little bit, and then at that point they're going to get pretty far ahead of schedule, I think, because games are just shorter now than they were before, with the 6-pick phase and the reveal phase being gone. So yeah, if you assume matches could be up to an hour and a half, and so just say each match is for some reason an hour and a half, that's 7.5 hours for the matches, and then maybe 30 minutes of prelude. And it was definitely longer than that. They seemed to start a little bit later, so they got ahead of schedule or whatever. But yeah, say if there's 30 minutes for the introductions and whatever at the beginning, then that's 8 hours, which is about how long it ran. So pretty good overall. And so hopefully they can get things started a little bit more swiftly today, and maybe it'll be even quicker of a broadcast. And so same amount of action in less time is, I guess, just good for everybody, right? And so I think that does it. Is there anything else I want to look at on here? We'll probably come back here at the end to look at the standings. Standings aren't especially interesting, having only seen one match for each of the teams. But okay, we'll go over to the CGG pages and we'll take a look at the matches. And actually, before the matches, I think I'm going to do a play of the week kind of segment, or I suppose it'd be play of the play day, since there are two play days per week. So we are going to go into it here. I mean, what do you guys think it's going to be? Is it, there were a couple of really good clutches by Bosco and Skies. There was a big iconic clutch. There was the DP Fire clutch, and there was Another one, I guess, the Surf and Drip. It was like a 2v5 to win the game to prevent Parabellum from taking it to overtime. So, all right, what do you guys think it's going to be? And here it is.
Kansan gets the trade right after Forrest picked up the first, but that still keeps the Sonics at a disadvantage. Iconic spotting the head of Super, but cannot get the headshot, and Kansan follows that up with a kill of his own. Perfect smoke, though, forcing Super to relocate. He's going to have to go for a different plan, and now Astralis has to step up to shut him down, but Rexon perfectly covers that. DP Fire gets in the sight. He gets the kill he needs. Time ticking away. He downs Kansan. He takes down the last one, and Rexon is gone. What a clutch from DP Fire, making it happen when it looked impossible.
Whoa,
Wow.
Wow, indeed, Stokes. It was a nice play, and maybe I could have picked one of the other ones. The 2v5 Beast in this match, I guess, Beast Coast versus Parabellum, was to decide the match or to prevent overtime, I suppose. So if they had not pulled that off, they would have gone to overtime, and they did pull it off, so they ended up winning without overtime, so they secured the full 3 points. So in terms of things like that, maybe this play could be better, or the Iconic play is better. That one also decided the game. It's not like Sonics were anywhere close to winning, but the game would have continued rather than ending. The Iconic, he kind of like pushes away from his desk or whatever after he pulls off his play, which is cool. But I think in terms of just the play itself, I really liked that one and thought it was quite good. It's just one guy pulling off a 1v3. Iconic's was a 1v2. He actually also had to plant. I think he got like a 4K in that round, so some factors. But this one is just quick and concise. It's nice to watch. You've got some magazine discipline. He gets all of those kills within one mag. If he had sprayed a few more bullets at any one person, he might have run out before he could get that last kill. So yeah, just really good play by DPR. Good positioning. Inserted himself in the correct position that was not being covered. So maybe a little bit of the fault lies with the Sonics, but that is going to be the play of the day, I suppose. Okay, let's talk about Beast Coast versus Parabellum. And right, so we have kind of all the players here. We are lacking a lot of the pictures. We have most of their names, but we know all their names and we know what they look like, but they're just not on CGG just yet. And so map vetoes on here is pretty cool. I don't think I want to go through all of this. That's going to make it quite more lengthy than I really care to. Okay, we were playing on Border. So first time we've seen Border in NA, first chance to see any map in NA this season, and it is a new map. And we saw all new maps, right? If you count Banks still as a new map. So we saw 2 banks, we saw Border, a theme park, and a skyscraper. Super cool to see. Okay, Parabellum versus Beast Coast. Let me look at the community prediction. About 3/4 of voters were in favor of Parabellum. That's about what I expected. Beast Coast, I think, were underdogs and underrated. And well, if they hadn't pulled off that clutch Surf and Drip, it could have gone overtime, and then Parabellum could have closed it out. So this was very close to going the other way. And so, you know, maybe closer than a 76% would suggest, but it's about what I expected, really. Okay, so looking at the round breakdown, Beast Coast got off to a super hot start. They got 3 in a row, and Border was, and pretty well still is, an attacker-favored map, especially with the repick now. The setups for defenders are really kind of hard to keep track of as a viewer, and I suppose maybe even as an attacker, because they're set up all over the map. No matter what they're defending, they're defending like everywhere. Maybe when they're defending the top floor objective, they're not too much on the bottom floor. They are to some extent, but when they are defending any other objective, which are all on the bottom floor, they are just on the top floor. They are trying to just completely deny attackers from getting in the building. Then attackers need to take a little bit of a foothold, whether that be like E stairs or CC or whatever, and then they have to break the entire roam and then get to site. And it's just like a ton of gunfights. Rounds are often decided before the attackers get anywhere near site if they lose several players or if the defenders lose several players, and that's just kind of how Border is played and needs to be played. If you don't contest them like that, they're going to take ground too quickly and be encroaching on site and get things done. Anyways, yeah, so it is expected generally that teams will take more attacking rounds than defending rounds, but it does end up being a defender-sided Border. 7 of the 12 rounds going to defenders, 4 for Beast Coast, 3 for Parabellum, and then attacking rounds you can see there as well. Right, so yeah, hot start from Beast Coast gets shut down by Parabellum. Wimpy shuts down their momentum with a 1v1 clutch, and then Parabellum gets 2 more, then they switch sides, and then it continues to be back and forth, but more directly. So it was 3 for Beast Coast, and then 3 for Parabellum, and now it's back and forth, back and forth. So Beast Coast, Parabellum, Beast Coast, Parabellum, Beast Coast, and Parabellum needs this one to go to overtime, but they get denied. It is that 2v5 clutch coming out from Drip and Surf. Surf was a monster this match, definitely one of the standout performers for not only this match, but also for the day. He has one of the highest ratings, which I think we'll look at the end. So yeah, some rounds seem like they should have gone the other way. I think there were some clutches. We saw the Wimpy clutch here, so this could have just gone the other way. And we see at least one more, yeah, a 1v2 clutch coming out from Anthony. So they needed this one to win the game 7-5 as well. And then it doesn't actually say clutch here because it's not a 1v, but it was a 2v5 clutch. So really big performance coming out from Beast Coast in general. And so we'll look at the stats here. Surf, the only one with a positive rating on his team. Anthony and Drip just barely below 1.0. And then Sweater and Slash a little bit below. Sweater, not the insane performance a lot of people thought he would have coming in immediately, but he was present and getting things done. He was taking those engagements. He was in 8 of the 12 opening duels. He won half of them, which is fair. Maybe we'll see him stay as aggressive, but be more successful in the future. 100% headshot rate is crazy also from Slash here, but 9-11 is not so bad. He did his job of being the entry or denying entry. Cost is a little bit low for these guys, 8% survival, but they did get the win. And then Creators looked quite good, by far the best stats on his team. Penguin really struggled here. He was playing the Thermite Smoke, but it seemed like he got a bit too aggressive in several rounds as the Thermite. He died early. One round he got off 1 Thermite and then died, and then I think another round he got off, I don't know if he got off any exothermic charges before he died, and maybe that even happened another round. But as you can see, he was involved in several entries. At least I want to say 2 of those were on attack, maybe all 3. So he had played entry before, and now he's playing Thermite. So maybe he needs to get out of that aggressive mindset. If there's one player that needs to stay alive, it is certainly the Thermite here. And then everyone else putting up around a 1.0 performance, with Creators being a little bit of a standout. And it looked like he got in more entry duels in this, but apparently it was only 2. He went 1-1, but 14-10. He had some really big rounds, really good KPR. So Creators, maybe he'll continue to prove himself to be a good team, but perhaps for the 3rd time in a row, he might be a good player on a bad team. So Tempo, XSET, and now Parabellum. But Parabellum didn't look bad by any means, but maybe they struggled a little bit more. And of course they wanted to win, but maybe they struggled a little bit more against Beast Coast than they wanted to, and people expected them to. So I think that does it for this map, this match, and we will move on to the next one. Sonics versus Astralis. So Sonics beating Astralis seemed like one of the likelier results for the day. I think if you were going to put an absolute lock for somebody to beat somebody else, it was probably DarkZero beating Mirage, and then maybe Space Station beating XSET. So I'd say Sonics beating Astralis was like the 2nd or 3rd most likely result in people's minds, but this was the biggest blowout of the day. No team seemed like they got smashed except for Sonics here. So everyone else got 3 or more rounds when they lost. Of course, everyone who won got 7 rounds. We didn't see any overtime or anything for the day, but Astralis really proving that they are not just the JV Sonics. They came out of the gates hot, and I talked about this in the prediction video, but I do attribute a decent amount of this to the map being Skyscraper. Maybe Sonics just weren't prepared, and maybe they did feel they were prepared, and well, Astralis just seemed very prepared, or maybe neither of them were that prepared, and just Astralis's adaptations and tactics and whatever just proved to be better. So in the very, I'll talk about this in a minute. Yeah, and maybe also Forest and Callout coming onto the roster had just revolutionized this, made them really, really good. Maybe Goddess is lacking a little bit compared to Jobro. She needs a little bit more time, and maybe Sonics just got complacent, seeing as though they beat Astralis like every time, and these guys are the NAL champions, one of the best teams from SI, and they thought, yeah, this will be easy, let's come in and just beat these guys, and they got too cocky. Whatever it was, for some reason they got smoked, and we'll have to see if this is a continuing trend. I think the Sonics will bounce back, and I think if anything, this just shows that Astralis is massively improved, so we will have to, there's just tons to see going forward. And okay, so you can just see the map veto here. So yeah, Sonics, 94% of votes. I mean, they are the NAL champions. They got 3rd place, I think, in stage 3. Astralis got like 7th. They like always beat Astralis. There's just so many reasons to predict Sonics, and I mean, literally every reason to predict them, and no reason to predict Astralis here, except for if you really thought Callout and Forest were going to make a difference, and it seems like they did. Looking at the player stats, one of the best performances, easily the best performance for the day, probably one of the best performance we'll see all season. 2.4 rating, that's just astronomical. 100% cost, flawless on entry, 2.0 KPR, survived half the rounds, got a 1VX, got a plant. Yeah, just insane performance. Iconic finally getting his revenge on the Sonics. He used to be on this team, and then him and 3 of his other teammates sort of got unceremoniously released, and then Super was joined by all these other guys, and they had a lot of success, but not success in this match. So in the very first round, Sonics started out looking good. They went up like 5-3. Astralis attempted to run out. It got shut down. Then they got another kill, and then Astralis ends up winning that round off of, I think Shuttle has end up getting like a 1v2 clutch or something. And well, I guess if we just scroll up, we can see the round breakdown. It's a 1v1 clutch, but Shuttle does get a 3K in the round in total. So that's sort of how a few of these rounds do end up going. And Sonics only end up winning one round, and their round is off the back of a clutch, so I guess they had to get clutched on several times, but they did have to clutch to get their one round, so not too eventful of a second round, but we're going to see a lot of iconic multi-kills. He did average 2 kills per round, so you're going to see a ton of those. Iconic 2K, 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 and then continuing on. This is the round that Sonics win. Grixer had like a whole minute to 1v2 clutch, and he ends up doing it. He looked like an absolute machine as he was doing it. He's so good. But his performance outside of this round in this game wasn't especially spectacular. So this is the one round that Sonics do end up winning. I guess it's unclear if Skyscraper is actually defender-sided or if Astralis just happened to start on defense and beat down Sonics. Well, I mean, I'm curious to see that as things progress. Iconic gets a 4K here, and then DP Fire, this is the play of the day round. He gets a 3K in a 1v3. And then we continue on, and we switch sides. Astralis gets around, putting them already onto map and match point. And then in the very last round, Iconic gets a 4K plant and a 1v2 clutch. So I think this is perhaps the runner-up play of the day. But I think because it's so spread out and it's like a 1v2 as opposed to a 1v3, I gave it to the other play. But unreal performance by Iconic in this game, and if he can keep playing like that, this team is going to be a force to be reckoned with. He's been quite a good player overall. He's just been a little bit inconsistent over his time. So, I mean, if him and his team can keep playing like this, it's going to be a good season for them. And, okay, so back to the stats one more time. Shuttle also had a pretty monstrous game, 1.5 rating, almost a 2 KD, really high costs and whatever. DP Fire and Forest with modest but solid performances. And then J90. The best performing player on their team by far last stage is just the lowest performing player here, but I mean, you don't need to perform if your teammates are doing things like these, okay? And then Kanzen and Grixer sort of keeping their heads above water. Rexon pretty close as well. Super and Yeti unfortunately got shut down hard. They are the two more support-oriented players, but I mean, they got shut down pretty hard, unfortunately. And okay, so yeah, I mean, Astralis is really good. Sonics fell off. It's just a day one fluke. It's a Skyscraper fluke. I don't know what it is. I mean, I'm really curious to see. I think this sets up for another game coming up, and Astralis versus Oxygen. Haven't really talked about the Oxygen game for the day yet, but maybe I'll talk about that. Talk about the upcoming match when I talk about that. Okay, so right, let's move on to the next game for the day. Okay, DarkZero versus Mirage. This was perhaps the least eventful game of the day. DarkZero beat Mirage fairly handily, and it didn't at any point look like it was going to go Mirage's way. They had a couple round wins, and one of them I think was kind of close, and maybe they brought some of the rounds that they lost kind of close, but it was just a solid victory for DarkZero. Nothing to sweat, and definitely a lot of work for Mirage to do going forward. I think they're really going to need to focus on beating some of the lower echelon teams because it doesn't seem like they're going to have that good of a showing versus the top echelon teams. But maybe, given that it is a fairly new roster, 3 new players coming in fairly recently too. There was that whole debacle with the Dream leaving the team, and then they thought they were going to get Newers, and then Auction ended up getting Newers as well. All this stuff. So maybe they just need a little bit more time, and maybe DarkZero has just finally figured out their stuff. They had kind of a shaky 2021 season as well. A decent amount of success, but I would say a little bit shaky, sort of always on the edge. But they seem to have refined their stuff. Pambazoo looked crazy. NJR is still crazy. I think still one of the best players in the league. And we'll look at the stats in a minute. A couple things to point out there. I don't know what else to say about it in general, so we'll just look at the breakdown. Almost played some Oregon or Chalet or whatever. Okay, so well, let me look at the prediction. 90%, and yeah, well, the Sonics one was more in favor of Sonics. That was a big surprise. But I think this was the biggest shoe-in of the day. This would have been quite a shock to see Mirage take this. I could have maybe seen it overtime, but a Mirage victory I thought was very, very unlikely. So Pambazoo goes crazy at the beginning of the game. He gets a ton of kills in, I don't know what round it is, like round 4 or 5 or something. At one point he has 10 kills and his whole team only has 21 kills, so he has almost half of his team's kill. And then he kind of slows down and NJR starts popping off, and we'll see it in the stats at the end. So, DarkZero, Mirage, or rather DarkZero, Mirage, DarkZero, Mirage. So, it's 3-2, not the end of the world. Generally, you do expect more attacking victories on bank, so maybe Mirage can turn it around once they switch sides. Kind of a crazy round here. DarkZero ends their attacking half 4-2. So yeah, maybe Mirage can turn things around, get a 4-2 half, send it to overtime, and maybe even get a 5-1 half and win the game. But then DarkZero starts out with a win. Mirage, keeping it somewhat competitive, gets another one, but then DarkZero gets 2 more to go on to map point, and then then the final one to close it out. And NJR 2K here, NJR 2K here, NJR 3K here. So he really was heating up at the end of the game, just shutting down Mirage every step that they were taking in a lot of these rounds. So I guess we'll just look at the stats. Benji, the only one to have a good rating on his team. He is sort of their entry player, the most veteran player on this team. For being on this team, I suppose Thomas has a decent amount of experience under his belt as well. But he is less of a confrontational player, I guess, in role. Benji and I think Razor are supposed to be the two entry players. He's playing a lot of Maverick here, so I'm not 100% sure what the roles. I think it's like Marms on support, Melted's on flank watch, Thomas flex, Razor and Benji entry, but we'll have to see more games going forward. So Thomas, he does have that IGL excuse, but still not a great performance, but almost identical performance to his other teammates, all going 4-9 or 5-9, except for, again, Benji up here. 2-0 on entry, 10-8 on KD, so good for him. Survival rate higher than his teammates. Benji is definitely a doubted player, and just because you pad your stats in a loss doesn't mean too much, but, you know, maybe we'll see a good season for Benji come out overall. And then Pamba ends up with just one more kill than NJR. He was, again, I think Pamba was at like 10-2 at one point, and then he sort of fell off a little bit. Went from that point like 2-3, and NJR picked it up. And NJR, unfortunately, pretty poor on entry. And I thought it was interesting, interesting to note, yeah, for lack of a better word, that Hyper had no entry engagements. In the past, he was like, maybe not the entry player. He was one of the he was maybe second entry, but he was like always playing entry. He was playing Finka here, so maybe it just happened that he didn't get into the entry engagements. But NJR and Pambazoo and even Canadian, all with 3 entry engagements, 2 Hypers, 0, is a bit curious. So still good stat line coming out from everyone on DarkZero, except for Eclipse, who is playing the Thermite and the Castle. And I should have mentioned this earlier, but I guess at any point is just as good. Castle was maybe the most played defender. I saw him, I think in the first game he was played every round, and then the next game he was played every round but like 1 or 2. He's been played a ton, and this might just be because of the maps we've been playing. Maybe we won't see as much Castle if we play like Villa or Clubhouse or Oregon, just on these maps that we're playing, but people really like the Castle, and he's really good. I mean, just he has a bad gun, but his gadget allows you to do things that no other operator can do anything near. 4 of those panels is crazy, and the increased deployment speed by being able to just replace a barricade is it's big. It's not like world shattering, but it is a nice quality of life thing. So anyway, yeah, Eclipse on the support role on the bottom here, but you know, supporting his team to having very good stats. And yeah, I mean, I guess that does it for this match. I'd like to see Mirage do a little bit better in the future, but I'm glad that they didn't get absolutely stomped. Like, they didn't get 0 or 1 rounds, or maybe even 2. 3 rounds is okay, but I do fear for them when they fight the likes of Oxygen, Space Station, Sonics, things like this. Okay, so moving on to the next game. Oxygen versus TSM, a bit surprising of a result for a lot of people, I think, but if you look a little bit deeper, I think that you'll find it to be not that surprising of a result. I did predict TSM, and obviously I do regret it because it went the other way, but I also really wanted to pick Oxygen. So a couple reasons that I went with TSM over Oxygen. I mean, the big one being that TSM are the reigning world champions, and Oxygen just made a couple of roster moves. This is their first actual game. Of course, they've been scrimming and whatnot with the team, but this is their first T1 game, official game with the new roster. So I thought it might take a little bit of time for them to adapt, but Dream and Newers especially seem to have just slotted in seamlessly, and they played incredibly. Laxing especially was a standout, not one of the new players, but him and Newers both dropped 13 kills with Laxing. I mean, we'll see the stats, but like 100% cost, 13-3, crazy. Yeah, so reasons to go with Oxygen, though. They've beaten TSM in the last 3 best of ones they played against them, so that is they beat them all 3 times they met in the NAL 2021. They placed above them in stages 1 and 3, just better results. They got first place and second place in those stages. TSM got second place to Oxygen, 6th place in stage 2, but that was just kind of a poor stage for Oxygen and a standout stage for TSM in regards to the other ones. And also, I mean, I think Oxygen just has a ton of potential with this team. I mean, they might be the best team in the league going forward. We'll have to see. But TSM has had struggles in best of ones, and a lot of people were questioning that. They were saying they didn't have the current structure with Merkazi IGL in those best of ones. So we'll have to see. And indeed, yeah, I mean, we're seeing it now. But TSM has just historically been better at international events than they have been in their own region. But even at SI, they did win the event, but they never beat another NA team. They were one of the NA teams, one of the only NA teams that played against another NA team, and so the only NA versus NA matchup was TSM versus DarkZero. TSM did lose that game, so in that whole time, they never beat an NA team, and they lost the only matchup there. So we are now back in best of ones in NA, so a whole different playing field than at the 6th Invitational. So Again, you can't take that away from them, but it is quite different. And so we'll have to see if going forward, maybe Oxygen is just incredible and TSM could win all their other games, but it might have to do a lot with the format. And we even got to play on TSM's fabled theme park. I think Oxygen were quite good on theme park, if I remember right, as well. But TSM is sort of that team that was touted as perhaps being the biggest benefiters of theme park coming back into the pool. And so, right, 7-4. Let's take a look at the round breakdown. Oxygen gets off to a super hot start, 3 in a row on attack. Theme park was a heavily defender favored map before, and maybe it's a little bit more attacker sided with attacker repick and whatnot now. But still, I mean, 3 in a row is massive. TSM answers back with 2. This is right after their timeout, so they sort of got things back together, and they did manage to get 2 rounds out of their timeout, which is quite good. But then Oxygen gets 1 more to deny TSM that even half. We switch sides. Oxygen now on the defense. They take the first round. They go up 5-2, but TSM answers back with 2 rounds. It's now a 1-round game. Oxygen is up 5-4, but then Oxygen just gets the final 2 rounds to close out the game. Newer's a big 3K in this round. I think it was the last 3 kills of the round. Notably, Newer's killed Bolo, I think like 3 times. At least 3 times, and I don't think Bolo ever killed Newers. So Newers being sort of touted as the new Bolo, the new insanely mechanical young player coming up to the league, and he really showed up Bolo. He well, let's look at the stats here. First, the community prediction. Yeah, 85% for TSM. One of the least swingy ones for the day. Of course, this is one of the only matchup of a that isn't a top team versus a bottom team, but still, you know, TSM being the world champions and being a hyper popular org, this doesn't surprise me. But you know, again, I think there were a lot of reasons to go with Oxygen, and well, they were vindicated in the end. So yeah, now moving on to the stats. Laxing went crazy in this game. He was like 11-1 or something at one point, and still ended on 13-3. Without ever doing an entry engagement. So he's just really doing his Laxing thing, sort of lurking in the shadows. He is just one of, if not just the best player in the world at what he does. Nobody can do it like him. He's so unpredictable and hard to pin down. And just statistically, he's proven himself. I want to say he's like top 10 highest rated players of all time at SIs, or maybe that's just international events. I want to say it's SIs, but 100% cost here, massive number of kills. You do have to keep in mind this is over the course of only 11 rounds, so 1.18 KPR, and that number is shared by Newers. 73% survival rate is so big, and that is sort of what Laxing is known for. Sort of sometimes it's a little bit embarrassing seeming for him. He's just the last one alive, and maybe he's like in a 1v4, but a lot of times his staying alive is a massive benefit for his team, massive detriment for the other team. And so Newer is flawless on the entry here, as many kills as Laxing, twice as many deaths, not as high of cost, so his impact was more concentrated in some rounds, but same KPR, a little bit lower survival rate. So just Laxing, if he is perhaps one of the least flashy but consistently good players of all time, Newers is now coming in, and if you watch the dude, watch how he plays, moves, aims, whatever, one of the flashiest players in the game. And well, I mean, who did it better? I guess Laxing slightly better based on the rating, but they each got a similar amount of success. Same kills, but one did some entry, and so he cleared more space, perhaps. And yeah, so just absolute dream team here. And well, Dream, unfortunately, on the team is down here. He was playing the Thermite Smoke, his first game on the team. He's been in NAL for a couple years now, but I mean, whatever, you know, again, Thermite Smoke. So you're almost certainly going to have the worst stats on the team, and if your teammates are doing this kind of thing, well, I mean, you can live it down, I'm sure. Vertical and Foxay, modest but decent performances, really playing their roles, and we do have the different roles now. Foxay coming off of the support, Dream going on to support, and Foxay on more of like flex with Vertical and Newers on the entry, and then Laxing on his classic roam / flank watch kind of thing. And then moving over to TSM, everybody got smoked. Bolo most of all. He didn't get a kill until like round 5 or 6 or something, and well, he brought it back a little bit, but still 5-9 is pretty bad. Achieve 4-9, even worse. Achieve and Merc were both on CGG's top 10 players of year 6. Bolo was an honorable mention, so these guys got a bit dishonored in this game. And I mean, I think we'll see them bounce back. They'll probably have an easy-ish time against some of the lower echelon teams, but well, my faith in them is a little bit shook against the top tier teams, i.e. Oxygen. They play Space Station pretty soon, and so we'll have to see how they do against them and DarkZero and well, Sonics. You know, we'll see what the deal is with them going forward. And yeah, so again, just everyone going negative, everyone doing pretty equally badly. I mean, I guess there's like a different, decent gap between the top and the bottom, but it's still all pretty red in coloration. So, all right, let's move on to the final game of the day. Base Station Gaming versus XSET. So this was sort of the Titan of NA best of ones versus the bottom of the barrel NA best of one team. Of course, this is just a new team. It was the XSET org, but now it's a whole new team. So that description isn't completely accurate anymore, but it is still a big question mark team. It seems like it has a lot of potential, but is unproven versus this absolute juggernaut who have had their struggles definitely internationally, but have been untouchable almost in the last two best stages. Also had struggles in the NAL finals when it wasn't best of ones, but still, we're playing best of ones, and here we are back. Bosco, now the IGL, and that seems like an obvious thing to do. I think Sky is hot and cold. They've all had some amount of even Fultz, I think, in like stage 1 was IGLing, so they've all, except for maybe Rampy, been IGLing, but Bosco onto Hard Breach, playing IGL, it just makes a ton of sense, and it looked pretty good in this game, and I'm sure it'll look better going forward. On the other hand, XSET, when they attack, they seem a little bit lost. The IGL situation, they said they're all sort of IGLing, or they're all calling, talking, whatever, and Kino's supposed to be the main voice, but he just doesn't seem like that vocal of a guy, so they're really going to have to solve this issue. And maybe it's not an issue. I mean, I don't know for certain. I couldn't hear their comms, but you know, I think it's a pretty likely thing to be going on. So we'll see how it goes going forward. And so let's just look at this. They almost went to Clubhouse, but they didn't want to allow the famous SSG Clubhouse. Almost went to Skyscraper, didn't want to repeat the Sonic situation. So we go to Bank for the second time of the day, a repeat of the map and the scoreline from the DarkZero versus Mirage game. Okay, so XSET comes out of the gate hot. They get 2 rounds, Space Station gets 1, and then another for XSET. So you do want to be winning more rounds than you lose on attack of Bank, and Space Station gets off to a pretty bad start here. Spirits gets 2 kills at the very beginning of this round. It's the opening 2 kills, and then he doesn't get another kill until like the last round of the game. So he looked like he was going to be really good, and then he really fell off, unfortunately. Yeah, 2 kills from him. I think 2 kills from Fultz makes it a 3v3, but XSET ends up winning it, and then another round for them, right? And continuing on, I already talked about this. They do get the plant down here, but Sky's in like a 1v4 post-plant, and then he can't pull it out. So XSET gets their 3rd round on the board, but they do not get another round. 6 in a row for Space Station coming up hot. Bosco and Skies pull out a really nice clutch in this round. It's like a 2v4, or no, it's not this round. It is this round. Space Station win this. I think it's like almost flawless, but not flawless. It's like a 5v1 and then goes to a 4v1, 4v0, whatever. This round, Bosco and Skies pull out a clutch. It's the 2v4, and then they each get like 2 kills with Skies dying before Bosco gets that last kill. Bosco hops off the plant with like 4 seconds on the clock and kills the guy who just killed his teammate. Big clutch from them. And then there's another clutch. I think it's in this round too. Okay, so they go on to defense. This is Space Station's first defending round. 3-3 coming into their defensive half is tenable, and well, it is more than tenable for them. They end up getting 4 in a row. Yeah, Skies, it's not quite a ninja defuse, but he gets it off just before Kino is able to make it around the corner and kill him. So it was like a 2v3, I think, by Bosco and Skies here. So dynamic duo indeed, the two sort of support-oriented players, with Skies coming off of hard support, Bosco taking it over, but I think Skies still being on sort of like flex support sort of thing. And okay, so Space Station just get the other rounds, and they look super solid. One of these, I think, is a flawless round. One of them is a round where they go from 3v5 to 3v0 in like 5 seconds. And community prediction, I think, is this the most decisive one of the day? And, well, it makes sense because, well, XSET, again, that bottom of the barrel team, previously different team now, but big question mark. And then SSG, just that super dominant regional team. So yeah, I think it makes sense. And, well, it did look shaky at the beginning for SSG, but they adapted very quickly and took over the game. And maybe it was just because XSET has good players, but they lack direction, so they're good on defense, but they are not good on attack. Of course, they did not take any attacking rounds. They almost took that first one, but they didn't quite. So looking at the stats here, it is Kino and Yaga on top, the 2 players that have played in Pro League previously, both having flawless entry stats, the only ones to not go negative. And so maybe these guys just need a few more reps in Pro League. They've all been really good players in T2, in CL, but haven't had their time in the limelight just yet, and it is now here, and they struggled in their first game, but playing in Space Station your first game that's a tough one. Sky's on top of the team, so over here on the sort of flex support role, like I said, playing the Maverick, and he really showed out. Him and Bosco in those clutch situations, he went 10-6 just like Fultz, and Fultz failed on the entry twice, but still put up a good scoreline overall. And then Bosco and Rampy right around the 1.0. Hot and Cold struggled a tiny bit, but, you know, -1, -2, not the end of the world. Just a much worse performance than you'd expect from the world beater that was Hot and Cold in, I guess, the entirety of 2021, but I'm sure he'll pick it up. Yeah, we'll have to see how well he does going forward, and maybe it'll be Skies is the new star of this team or somebody else. Okay, yeah. And I think that does it. I think the only thing I wanted to say, and I think I did mention this before, but yeah, SSG did have to clutch a few of the rounds that they won. So 7-3 doesn't tell the whole story. This could have easily been a 5-5 at one point, and then from there, you know, maybe Space Station win, maybe it goes to overtime, whatever. But 7-3 makes it seem a little bit less close than it felt most of the game. And then XSET, indeed, they did seem weak on attacks with the lack of direction from a clear IGL, and so maybe they're really gonna have to shore things up. They're going to have to go to maps that are easy to attack, I guess, maps that you can do like default takes. So yeah, we're just gonna need to see some improvement from them going forward, but they do have a ton of potential on the team. They were clearly shooting pretty well, even if some of these scorelines weren't good. It's just hard to keep up with the absolute gunners on SSG. So yeah, I'm curious to see how XSET will fare versus some of the quote-unquote lower tier teams when they play Parabellum and Beast Coast and whoever else. Okay, so yeah, I'm sure this video is mega long. It's probably like over 30 minutes, but it is what it is. If you watch to the end, I mean, you are now enlightened, but if you watch to the end, you probably already knew this stuff and just like to hear about it again. So, right, if you did watch to the end, you know, drop me a sub, drop me a like, it'd be appreciated. And yeah, nothing else to say, I think. So with all of that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video.